look different where we are today. 15 months of COVID, it's a real melee.
Once we had our freedom, happiness and fun, then we settled in for an awfully long run. It's no wonder that we feel abused, 'cause COVID left us feeling quite confused.
That was the year, yes, my friend. It wouldn't end.
We just had to choose, or we would lose.
The horror of the year went rushing by us. But one day soon this too will be behind us.
Oh, life, how dreary, oh, strife. I never felt a single thing but blue. Even streaming Netflix soon became such a bore. The washing hands and masking up became such a chore.
COVID-19, that doggone COVID-19, it just can't keep us down. Just try and keep us down.
It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change, Charles Darwin.
Coronavirus 19.
Shelter in place.
Contact tracing.
Social distancing.
Long hauler.
Super spreader. COVID bubble.
COVIDiot.
Coronavirus.
Virtual happy hour quarantine.
Pfizer.
Moderna.
Fully vaccinated.
Yeah.
In the 15 months since we shut down for the flu, we have certainly learned a lot of new words. But what have we experienced? What have we been taught? What are we grateful for?
I remember in December 2019 hearing about this new virus in China. I wasn't too worried because there had been other viruses that didn't grow into epidemics, let alone pandemics.
And I'm thinking, what is everybody so excited about? It's just the flu.
I followed the news from the very beginning, but I had no feeling for how long it would be. It was so gradual.
On February 29th, I saw Leslie Odom Jr. with the Eugene Symphony. Two well-dressed men were passing in the aisle, and one offered a handshake. The other stuck out his elbow for a bump. I thought, oh, that must be because of the coronavirus. It seemed so far away at that time.
I was first aware of COVID sometime in January. What caught my attention was when the Chinese shut down the entire Wuhan province. I remember feeling relieved that the virus seemed contained so far away.
What really caught my attention was when the Japanese refused to let 3,700 passengers off of a Carnival cruise in early February. Still, it seemed far across the Pacific, and honestly, I never thought it would reach our shores.
We flew to Mexico City February 29 for what was to be my month-long 70th birthday celebration.
Yes.
With a nod to caution, we used hand sanitizer for the very first time on the plane. We saw some people in masks, but thought that was the total overreach.
Yeah, well, I have to admit that when Italy shut down, I started to wonder, do I have hay fever or COVID?
I remember watching heartbreaking footage of Italians singing to each other from their balconies.
The information from Italy was accompanied by much more transparent data than what the Chinese were offering. The scientist in me recognized that what the Italians were doing were both logical and justified. By late February, after seeing what was going on in Europe, I suspected it was only a matter of time till it spread here.
Yeah. On March 6th, George and I went to a center arts show. No masks, no social distancing.
We started to think maybe we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, and then on March 8th, a cruise ship got stuck in Oakland because of COVID-19. It all became very real and very close.
Meanwhile, down in Mexico City, we were having such a great time. Friendly people, sunshine, language class every morning, and exploring every afternoon.
Except insomniac that I am, every morning I was reading the New York Times before the sun came up, and it was obvious the pandemic was raging. Interestingly, the local news didn't have much to say about it, but there we sat, smack in the middle of a petri dish with 20 million other people.
Slowly, the historical sites that our teacher had planned to take us to were closing.
And then one morning, I read that the U.S. was going to shut down to all incoming air travel.
We booked our return flight that afternoon through Houston 2 weeks early. Then we saw it was taking people 8 to 10 hours to get through customs there.
And nobody was wearing a mask. There was no social distancing.
So we rerouted our flight to San Francisco.
Which was a ghost town. Customs took 5 minutes.
We were the only people at any of the car rental counters.
The freeways were practically empty, and driving in the city was creepy. The streets were deserted like some zombie movie.
I had no idea we'd be in lockdown for such a long time. When our Ollie voice class went Zoom, an artist made a watercolor of her apple blossoms, a Zoom background. The class joked that we'd better not see a Zoom of her apples in the fall.
The apple painting was beautiful too.
I thought it might last a few months. Carol was still working on the summer show until mid-May. Now it's not scheduled till 2022.
I kept comparing it to the pandemic of 1918.
What?
Not that I was there.
I've been very interested in plagues and pandemics ever since I learned about the Black Death in junior high. I've read many books on the subject over the years, so I hopped on the news with interest and curiosity and knew we were in trouble. In past pandemics, people have behaved selfishly and irrationally, as well as heroically and magnificently. So intellectually, I expected the same kind of behaviors with COVID-19, humans being what we are. But as March, April, May unfolded, I was aghast and frightened, both by the spread and by the political response.
I simply couldn't imagine living the way we were for very long. Surely it would be contained by summer.
I was hopeful it would be over by the fall, and in the beginning that seemed likely. But then the virus would surge every time the governments would cave to political and financial pressure and loosen restrictions. It all spun out of control. Then we had to adapt.
First big change, I started wearing a mask.
I made masks with a middle layer using a HEPA filter from my vacuum cleaner bag. I used my late husband's old hankies on the outside for good luck and remembrance.
Well, Etsy sold over 50 million masks between May and September of last year.
Wear a mask, you can make one really fast. Just tie a scarf around your neck, your mouth, your nose. Oh, what the heck?
Get some cloth, add some ties, you can make it really nice. It will help you be protected so that you won't get infected. Wear a mask for the folks you adore.
For the grocery clerks and postmen at your door.
And if we all do this, then soon we'll get to kiss. Just wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask.
I just hate when I can't find my mask and it's time to go.
What I don't like about masks is I can't see smiles. But if I look and see the eyes crinkle up, that's a sure sign that they're smiling underneath that mask.
I saw the woman coming out of the post office, and I stopped her with comments about her mask. how I liked the color, the design, and how it complemented what she was wearing. I said, you must have just received some good news because I can see it in your eyes and hear it in your voice. I suppose that my comments to some people might have seemed inappropriate. And they probably were, except that she was 20 or 30 years younger than I was. So, yeah, but here was a live person and I hadn't talked to anyone in days. So we chatted a bit about our children, what the day had in store for us, and how we were coping with it all. I experienced none of the discomfort that I so often feel at a chance encounter. Finally, we said our goodbyes and wished each other the best. And as she walked away, I realized that I had absolutely no idea who she was. Except in the beginning, I thought I did. But it was still, it was a rewarding few moments. Yeah. And I considered myself fortunate to have so many good friends whom I had never even met.
We were outside one day, and a man called to me by name. He was wearing a mask and sunglasses and a baseball cap. It could have been George Clooney himself, and I wouldn't have recognized him.
Well, I began to notice the name tags that doctors and other professionals wore with their photo on it, so I'd know what they looked like. So I made a personal badge with my photo on it that I'd wear to appointments so they'd know what I look like without a mask.
I started having dreams, nightmares about no one wearing masks.
I'm generally one who confronts people, but if someone's not wearing a mask, I'll just leave rather than confront them.
Yeah, I just don't confront mask holes.
No.
Well, I leave immediately because I don't trust myself to speak appropriately and fear that if I say what I think, I might get shot. Oh, I hope that doesn't sound too paranoid.
Not at all.
And what's with these people who wear their masks below their noses?
I mean, I wear masks for others, but I am never going to get used to wearing them.
Well, I think about my mother wearing a girdle all day long. So I guess I can wear a mask for a while.
Although I've never worn a girdle.
Really?
Yep. I learned something the hard way.
Oh.
Do not eat raw onions if you're going to have to wear a mask.
Speaking of food,
Nice transition.
well, thank you, Els. Speaking of food, shopping was another big adjustment in our lives. I was so unsure about what to do. Should I go to the store? My friends were ordering groceries. Should we? Was it okay to touch things from the store? Was I too old to even be thinking about going out?
At first, I shopped during senior hours, about every 3 weeks, buying masses of food I hoped would keep, and eating down to nearly bare shelves before returning to the store.
I just don't know when I'm going to eat that case of refried beans.
In those first months, 40% of consumers tried home delivery apps and curbside pickup for the first time.
There was so much unknown about the virus in the beginning. Even the experts didn't understand how it spread. Things like wiping down groceries became commonplace.
Well, we actually watched YouTube to figure out how to wipe down our grocery delivery. And then we had this precise little system. But every time I was doing it, I wondered if this was our future. And that felt truly bleak.
I was happy to see local stores wiping down their carts after each use.
Grocery shopping for my senior 10% on Tuesdays became one of the highlights of my week, and it kind of still is.
I enjoy grocery shopping, if only as a break from inactivity. But the health experts lied. They said that gloves and a mask is all you need to go to the grocery store. But when I got there, everyone else had their clothes on.
Well, I eat more often since I'm home alone with my kitchen. It reminds me of a diet book I once read. When you eat at the refrigerator, pull up a chair.
Salad is my friend. So is cake. Chocolate, of course.
Everybody in the world likes chocolate. Oh, I love it. It makes me so happy. Hey, Annette, hit it now. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Mama, she say roly moly, Papa, he say holy moly. Everybody likes a chocolate. All the girls want candy, candy. All the boys want candy, candy. Everybody likes a chocolate.
Come on, chocolate, chocolate.
Chocolate, chocolate. Everybody likes a chocolate. Chocolate, chocolate. Chocolate, chocolate. Everybody likes a chocolate.
Did you know that there was a study and the average American gained 2 pounds per month during the pandemic?
Oh,
Crazy.
Lots of people spent more time baking. Sales of yeast quadrupled in March of 2020 and doubled for the whole year.
Well, I was starved for diversion and turned to baking. It's too bad I killed my sourdough starter in the first week. But my yeast-based cinnamon rolls were terrific and nice and fresh for breakfast.
Luckily for me, part of my survival strategy for COVID was to sleep and not rush getting out of bed in the morning. Places to go? No. People to see? No. Besides, it let Tracy finish those delicious rolls.
Interesting little fact, online pajama sales jumped 143% in March and April of last year.
Although I've spent perhaps too many hours in my bathrobe reading, I tried to force myself to walk as much as I can. Not in my bathrobe.
I was really restless early on, so I got out our long-buried exercise bike.
I had to give up my gym membership, so I created my own exercise routine. It took a little while, but now I enjoy a daily routine that's frankly better and more consistent than before.
I exercise so I can eat. I love to eat. I'm the queen of snacking. Therefore, I'm in much better shape than I was a year ago. Lots of exercise, walking, and great yoga classes online.
I took online dance classes that were full body workouts, but my bike rides with my buddy Barry were lifesavers.
For me too, Bill. Plus, new places to hike with Trace.
Sometimes I grab hold of myself, so to speak, and take furtive neighborhood walks before breakfast, wearing my mask, and crossing the street to avoid others. I felt I had to be cautious because I had my right shoulder replaced last July with weeks of physical therapy. Also had cataract surgery in the fall. Everyone was cautious and careful, but I was anxious and hypervigilant. All the procedures involved getting COVID tests, but that didn't allay my anxiety very much.
I had an appointment with a dental surgeon to have another tooth extracted and 2 teeth implanted. It was to be a series of visits over months. It broke me up to have to postpone all that yanking and drilling.
Well, my physical health in the last year has improved in a lot of ways. I haven't lost any weight, but I haven't gained any, and that, for me, that's an accomplishment. My plan for last year was to improve my health, to try to reverse some of the damage my career had on my body.
I hear you retired.
Oh, right, exactly. In December of 2019, I decided to retire from my job as a career prosecutor in homicide. Wow. Yes, wow. Let me say that again. I'm retired.
When we were first told to shelter in place, I canceled all my piano tuning appointments. But Annette kept calling me, please, Bill, can you tune my piano? And so after 4 weeks about, I started going out again on a limited basis. But then when Humboldt went to Purple Tear, I stopped again. I was lucky I had some pianos in my shop to work on.
Yeah. I've been a highway inspector over the course of this last pandemic. I've been in town in Humboldt and Del Norte and up in Mendocino counties, and out there on the highway, it's almost impossible to mask up. You've got traffic going by, you've got equipment. You have to have really clear communication. Everybody has your protection on, and it's really challenging, but it's not impossible.
The biggest challenge for me was finishing up my PBS Key television production. Suddenly, my 75-year-old producing partner and I couldn't go down to the studio to edit. But we managed to cobble together a primitive system, and we spent the year editing. I even recorded voiceovers in my closet. Where there's a will, there's a way. It was laborious and far from ideal, but we did it.
In March, I returned to in-person learning at a K-5 school. It was a wonderful first day for the kindergartners, those bright faces eager to learn. The first day is often a honeymoon mix of cooperation, excitement, a little shyness. Felt good to be in a group of more than 3 people. Jenny, the teacher, was doing her familiar welcoming mix of information, instruction, and nurturing when I noticed that the analog clock on the wall had stopped at a random moment. Indeed, in that classroom, time had frozen for a year.
For the past 20 years, I've loved going to my volunteer job at the Morris Graves Museum, but then I couldn't.
Yeah, all my volunteer activities ended abruptly, and at first I was upset. The food bank said I was too old to work there.
Though I'm retired, I'm still helping various environmental entities review and comment on federal projects that are harmful to listed species. Wow. Yeah, since I'm not traveling much, I have lots of time to review lots of documents.
Well, I'm a member of Arcata Threshold Choir. In small groups, we sing songs of comfort to those in need, mostly people in hospice care. It's close to my heart, but of course we had to stop our visits. We continue to rehearse on Zoom, but we're all frustrated we can't offer our services yet.
It was because of the pandemic that I volunteered to host a weekly Zoom gathering for Ollie HSU. And thanks to technology, people from all over can come. What a great bunch they've turned out to be. They're so positive and resilient, caring. Oh, they're funny too.
I work with and teach the language of the soul, the esoteric tarot. And this last year has been amazing for me, my clients, and my students, because it was so challenging. And everybody was triggered and everybody's stuff was up, so hence there was a lot of growth. And at first, I'd had some clients on Zoom before, but then when all my classes went online, it was a huge adjustment. I had wires everywhere, and I had to get a big screen TV, and I had a camera, and at one point, I had an Ethernet coming out of the bathroom window of my house, snaking through my garden, and into the window of my studio in order to get decent internet. But now I'm thriving because anyone from anywhere can take my classes. I have a student in Hawaii, San Diego, Oklahoma, and even Willow Creek. And of course, Zoom is always hilarious, depending on your facial expression when the screen freezes.
It's kind of like the modern day seance. There's someone here who wants to join us. Carolyn, can you hear us? We can't hear you. Carolyn? Carolyn?
A whole new world, a dazzling place I never knew. It's full of Zooms and tweets and hyperlinks, and now I'm in a whole new world with you.
Hey, Zoom. It's been a wonderful tool to keep families together. For the first 9 months, we would Zoom every Sunday morning with all of our kids. And at times it was tough to see them struggling, but we kept each other afloat, and laughing helped a lot.
When my daughter, who lives in Portland, got a scratchy throat, I was extremely alarmed. To calm me down, she started calling briefly every day. It's continued to my great delight and relief. Often we just say, all is well, but sometimes we have wonderful exchanges.
After our daughter graduated from UC Santa Barbara last spring, all her plans were canceled. She came home to live with us till she could find the work she wanted to do. Those 5 months were a true gift the pandemic gave us. Now she lives in Washington, D.C., so far away. It was such a joy to have her home.
All our kids are spread out all around the country, so, well, we just talked on the phone.
I missed our grandchildren.
The thing I missed most was not getting to see our grandkids in person. We were so lucky. We had 3 grandbabies join the family between October 2019 and October 2020. The other 2 kids are only 4 and 9 years old. Oh, I feel robbed of precious time with each and every one of them. That fun, fascinating time in their development we'll never get back.
Nora was just 4 months when the quarantine began. After months apart, we were really missing her and her parents. So we decided to safely meet in the middle, outside, in a parking lot at Lake Mendocino. We backed up our cars together, wore masks, kept our distance. I put a blanket down in the bed of the truck, and Nora had a giant playpen to explore.
Finally, time was running short. Oh, I really wanted to hold that baby.
She climbed over to the side of the truck, pulled herself up, reached out her hand.
I couldn't help myself. I just had to touch that sweet little finger.
It was so hard not to hug any of them, but to see them in person really made the drive worth it.
It did.
I miss them all.
I miss my son's softball games.
I miss going to Giants games with my love.
I miss making art with others.
I missed singing with others.
I missed get-togethers with friends and family.
I miss human touch.
I miss people to talk to. I talk to myself a lot to break the silence and to search for those little nuggets of wisdom that help me find a way to make life in the time of COVID more bearable.
I miss celebrating holidays together.
For the longest time.
For the longest I've been staying home in quarantine. Family, friends are never to be seen. Self-isolation, that's how we help our nation. I didn't leave home for the longest time.
I thought this won't last very long. In just a few weeks, how could I be so wrong? Maybe I'm just hoping too darn hard. But now we've come this far.
But please make it stop now. Who knows how much longer we'll go on? Don't be sorry when COVID is gone. I miss you so bad. I think you ought to know that I intend to hold you for the longest time. For the longest time. Whoa. For the longest time. Whoa. For the longest time.
Isolation has forced us into an exaggerated interest in self. There's a real danger in that.
Social deprivation and isolation sank home. When I went to Target for a new router, I found myself going up and down every aisle, enjoying what I was looking at as if I were in an art museum.
I got by with a little help from my friends. I've missed human touch terribly. To be afraid to shake a hand or hug a friend has increased my sadness and sense of isolation.
My isolation was increased, the distress of it was increased by the bruising political nonsense that carried on throughout most of the year.
The lockdown gave us too much time to hear news and to mull it over.
I was so involved in the endless news of destructive missteps and idiotic incompetence.
Our cover has been blown. We're having to look at what and who we truly are. Our prejudices, our selfishness, our separateness. We are being forced to look at what our country was truly founded on. That the Statue of Liberty is just an ideal that we have yet to attain.
We have lived through some of the worst moments this year in modern history.
There was an epidemic of violence, especially horrific hate crimes that reached their highest level in more than a decade.
The murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor reignited the Black Lives Matter movement and the massive protests supported by people of all colors.
Tear gassing peaceful protesters for a photo op with a Bible.
Over 900 crimes targeting Jews.
There was an increase of almost 150% of hate crimes against Asians.
Children were kept in cages at the border with insufficient records, preventing them from reuniting with their families.
There was a record number of LGBTQ murders.
We've had QAnon, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and Separatists splitting our country, ultimately leading to the January 6th storming of the Capitol.
And none of this was helped by some of our leaders, whipping up their base with non-factual, inflammatory tweets.
Voter suppression. And there's still not wanting to admit the outcome of a presidential election.
And then there was the vilification of the free press, which has historically been a fundamental pillar of American democracy and freedom of speech. So many different news sources were repeatedly referred to as absolute scum, or fake news, or enemy of the people.
Felons convicted of fraud and obstruction of justice were gleefully pardoned.
We felt Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death so deeply, only to have Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation ram through Congress in record time, just a week before the presidential election.
On top of all these distressing things, the virus was ignored, denied,
Weaponized,
yeah,
joked about, politicized.
And exacerbated by political forces, misinformation and disinformation.
There was a failure to implement the National Security Council's pandemic playbook and a systematic undermining of the Department of Public Health.
And now, the U.S. has nearly 600,000 deaths from COVID-19, with an astounding nearly 3.75 million deaths worldwide.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
There have been so many things to grieve every day since this whole thing began. To watch my country suffer through such upheaval and not be able to do anything about it left me feeling so helpless. The sheer loss of so many, day after day, is taking its time. Such profound loss.
In addition to the loss of life, we learned that we cannot count on Washington for help or guidance.
Having a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old at home, I pay attention to what's going on with the younger generations. What's most upsetting is a recent Pew study that showed only 13% of millennials trust the government. They are our future. What does this mean?
I realize that I'm very angry and disappointed in some of my fellow Americans. The malfunctioning of the federal government appalled me.
It's going to take some time to learn to trust our leaders again, and I don't know when we'll be able to trust the news sources.
2020. we had the pandemic and politics and social injustice movements. And I've never been one to follow a steady stream of negative news. I think that's counterproductive and unhealthy. But I find myself wandering through news stories, motivated to stay current on COVID. It felt like my community responsibility, be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
I feel like I've been living through a time of enormous social change.
Yes.
And I want to witness this. After being chided by my friends, I tried to cut back on reading the news, but I was back at it within a day, or less, because I felt history was being made all around me, and I didn't want to miss anything.
This past year has heightened my awareness of the social media dilemma. It has made me appreciate factual information and prompted me to search for reporting that isn't based on my personal internet history.
Yeah, being home vastly increases the amount of time I spend paying attention to both global and national news. I have the time to fact check and research the things I don't understand.
Yes, this time has really shown us there's so much in the world that needs to be fixed. I mean, we all knew that our environment was in trouble and that human activity was making it worse. But this time has brought it forward, front and center.
Wildfires here and in Oregon made air quality unbearable. I felt like a prisoner in my own home.
2020 was one of the hottest years on record, reaching an astonishing 100 degrees in Siberia.
Yeah. Well, we had a record hurricane season, and there were flash floods and drought.
You know, climate damage knows no borders or passports, and environmental damage knows no sovereignty.
And yet it was a year when the economy ground to a halt, and so did fossil fuel consumption.
There were immediate positive signs. Cleaner air across the globe.
Yeah, there was cleaner river water.
The ozone layer is healing.
There were views of the Himalayas from India for the first time in decades.
And noise pollution was reduced. Things like less shipping meant a quiet ocean, so humpback whales off of Alaska can better communicate with their young. Or fewer tourists and Land Rovers in Africa, baby cheetahs could hear their mother's call. And get this, you're gonna love it. Less traffic rumbling over the Golden Gate Bridge apparently puts birds in the mood because they're mating with wild abandoned.
Schools of fish have been spotted in the canals of Venice.
Wow. When the pandemic shut everything down, we started to see the most amazing environmental recovery so quickly. It truly gave me hope. Maybe this break can spark humanity to make a change. As a wildlife biologist, I've spent my whole career working to try to lessen the impact of humanity on the planet. And I have often thought about how species populations get knocked back when they exceed carrying capacity. Or more simply put, when population numbers get too large to be sustained within their habitat. Well, humanity has had a disproportionate impact on the planet, wildly exceeding this carrying carrying capacity. I truly believe this last year was nature's way of forcing us to take a break, take a look at what we're doing, and change our ways. A warning shot across the bow of humanity.
So many things in the environment.
There are so many things in the environment that we need to.
World leaders are promising recovery cash.
Oh, and only
yes.
about 18% of that recovery cash can be considered green.
Oh.
But hey, on a lighter note, the manufacture of plug-in cars had increased to about 40%.
Wow.
And Americans traveled 430 billion fewer miles last year. That's 430 billion with a B.
Cities across the globe are building more public parks, trails, bikeways, and pedestrian malls.
And many companies are shifting their priorities to become more eco-friendly. Disney is working on policies to reduce greenhouse emissions, and plus they have a zero waste policy.
Hewlett-Packard cut back on toxic materials and started an aggressive recycling program.
Even Starbucks is creating green stores to reduce the impact that businesses have on the environment.
It's not that easy being green, having to spend your days so worried for our world, when I know it would be easier doing what we have done before. But maybe it's time we all stop and change. It's not easy being green. It seems we recycle and compost and avoid those plasticky things. Our climate gets warmer and warmer. Hurricanes, fires, and drought. Then COVID shuts us down like never before. Now we can see. Yes, green is the color of spring. The earth can be cool and friendly again. Being green can feel big like an ocean, as important as a mountain, as tall as a tree. When green is all there is to be, you might wonder why. But why wonder, why wonder? Let's be green and we'll be fine. It'll be beautiful. We know it's what we want to be.
Perhaps this pause from life as usual has given us some perspective. We need to do all we can to protect the earth from pollution and climate change. I certainly like getting 3 weeks to a gallon of gas.
Heck, I get 3 months to a gallon.
Well, I just went to the grocery store, so I mostly traveled around my yard. I've never been much of a gardener, but I love watching little seeds grow into vegetables and flowers.
Oh, I am thrilled that people have rediscovered nature, myself included. I started walking at the beach every day to clear my head, and now it's a wonderful habit. I even bought rain gear so I can walk no matter the weather.
Well, my daughter turned me on to Cornell University Feeder Watch, and I finally learned the names of the birds I've been feeding for years. I've also had time to watch beetles crawling and snails sliming. And I've had the chance to watch the opening of a blossom in real time.
Oh. I've been working in my yard to make a little oasis of English countryside, complete with fairies. I'm so thrilled that the plants that I put in last year are thriving, and I'll work on this for years.
You know, when your world gets small, nature lets you live large. We are so lucky to live in Humboldt.
surrounded by nature. It's a constant source of inspiration and entertainment.
But when it's cold and raining and too dark, I'd rather be inside with my new buddies, as my friend Jen calls them, Harry Hulu, Andy Acorn, Peter Prime.
Oh yeah, I finally finished Netflix.
Whoa, right, yeah. I so enjoyed binging on this Swedish TV series with my nightly glass of COVID red wine, and of course snacking on pistachios. It was great.
Well, unlike ever before, we have endlessly been streaming movies and series. And there's this quiet little funny sadness that settles over us when we realize we're coming to the end of a favorite series.
I've noticed there's a point in almost every conversation where it's, what have you been watching? Or, I've been watching this great series. Even my Italian teachers and I exchanged recommendations. The world has gotten so small. Learning more Italian has been one of my favorite things to do this past year. I have 2 native Italian tutors that I talk with every week. One lives in Sardinia, the other in southern Spain. Plus, weekly chats with a local friend who's also learning Italian. Il mio italiano sta migliorando molto.
Fantastico! Much to my dismay, I finally got a computer this last month. Mainly to submit stories I've written for publication.
Oh, good for you.
But I have discovered YouTube documentaries, and I have become a YouTube junkie.
Mamma mia, che peccato!
Yep, new stories, new acts.
Old dog.
Old dog.
Okay, everyone. Okay, everybody needs to take a deep breath and think about what we've learned over the year. And pause to truly reflect on what really matters. Perhaps we can use this unprecedented moment in history to decide how we want to move through ordinary time when it returns.
At some point last year, I realized this is just the way life is right now. And as soon as my thinking turned around, I became more optimistic and positive. I discovered that there were lots of things I could do and lots of ways I could reach out to others. I was not at the mercy of circumstances.
I've found it especially hard when dear friends have passed away this year. Not being able to get together and say goodbye. I have been basically philosophical about it. Adapt. Move on, Els. I welcome every day that comes and grateful for it.
I've been reflecting a lot about death also. How do I want to die? And how to live well so when my time comes, I can let go easily. And as an elder, I am really, really feeling the responsibility to support in any way I can the younger generation who have taken on this monumental task of reimagining our world.
The pandemic in the nation and the situation in the world have really opened my eyes to the fact that everyone has their own reality, and I have no right to judge, but I don't have to engage them or agree with them. I've also been stunned to find out how deep the socioeconomic divide is in this country. Things have got to change. One person can't do everything, but maybe a group of people can start to turn the Titanic around a little at a time.
Right on, Elizabeth. I have been thinking a lot about this little boomer Troupe's take on this last year. And we really are a very small proportion of the world population. We are very privileged. We all have homes, we have income, we have lots of food, and we have not truly been highly inconvenienced by the upheaval on the planet. But I also know that with our new awareness and the blessings of our lives, that this will enable us to step up and support those who are truly struggling.
I have increased empathy for our human condition and have made an effort to learn more about white fragility and to practice anti-racism. If we see something, say something.
I've learned that essential workers are essential all the time.
I've been reminded of the abundance of strength and wisdom and hope in the human spirit. And when combined with amazing minds and advanced technology like messenger RNA, breakthroughs like the vaccines can happen in record time.
Come back inside to the theater.
Hallelujah! 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 Hallelujah!
I am so thankful for the vaccine. Not being able to gather with others helped me appreciate on a much deeper level how much I need family and friends.
And I realized how much I take it for granted the clean air we have in Humboldt. Every day when I go on my walk, rain or shine, I revel in the freedom of movement and the clean air.
The pandemic has given me time to realize I don't have to rush around so much. I can take time to grow a garden, repurpose piano parts. Perhaps we can go back to normal life in a greener, slower way.
I've certainly enjoyed discovering the luxury of a nap on a sun-drenched couch.
Yes, the deep flavor of pour-over coffee.
That I like to sing.
I like to play my trumpet.
And I like putting jigsaw puzzles together while listening to fantasy sagas and dystopic science fiction.
I've rediscovered how funny my children are, and I'm so grateful for time with family.
And how funny George and our dogs are.
How much I love art and music and nesting in my beautiful home.
Yeah, and how I just love to putter around the yard and fix up our little travel trailer.
I've learned how wonderful it is to ride around with my bike on this wonderful area we live in.
I've rediscovered how rich my life is, and how blessed I am with a mind that helps me to adapt, see things, and mind things, and what?
When we focus on what's important to us, we learn a great deal. Remember, someday this will all be over.
And the earth will continue to spin.
And life will continue to flow.
And we have to believe that we have learned something about ourselves and our world.
Remember Charles Darwin's words, "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change."
Yes.